As with any Archon, Mavuika is going to be a big benefit to a lot of Genshin's currently existing teams. But who exactly benefits from her existence the most? That is what I will be covering in today's video. But first, all these insane banners coming right after each other should be stretching you pretty thin. So how about we make that a little easier with the sponsor of today's video, LD Shop. LD Shop is a website that allows you to top up for a wide variety of games, including but not limited to Genshin, HSR, and ZZZ. All you need is your UID and server, and after trying it out, it works. If you register, you will gain a 5% off and a 2% off coupon. And if you use my link, that's another 5% off coupon, working for a maximum of $50 saved. And if you still have the double top-up bonus, don't fret. It does in fact work with LD Shop. Alternatively, you can also become a VIP by spending $80 on top-ups in a month, giving you free monthly passes as well as extra coupons. So be sure to sign up now and use my link for that additional coupon. On to the video topic though. The first team I would like to talk about is a main DPS Mavuika comp. It's clear from her kit that Hoyo clearly intended for us to do this. I mean, her entire burst screams, DPS me now! For the team I want to present it first, it's going to be a Vaporise comp with Furina, Shallonen, and Bennett. This is going to be the most used Mavuika DPS comp by quite a long shot. First of all, Mavuika's desperate need for another Night Soul character is fulfilled here by Shallonen, a character we are going to see a lot with Mavuika. That is only a part of what Shallonen provides, however. Obviously, there are also the things everyone can look at when we talk about Shallonen. Her resistance shred and damage bonus through 4P Cinder are still as prevalent as they always are. Thanks to Mavuika's very consistent off-field pyro application, getting a pyro crystallize to trigger 4P Cinder City on Shallonen should be quite easy. Shallonen on her own can fill a whole 90 free fighting spirits, almost half of what Mavuika wants. Mavuika can handle the rest on her own. Furina will be our Hydro slot in. It's already been proven by recent footage that Furina will be capable of applying enough Hydro to where Mavuika can vaporize all of her hits that her ICD allows her to. This combined with Furina's already famous damage percent buffing and personal damage makes her a prime contender for a Mavuika vape team. Bennett is Bennett. What more is there to really say about him at this point? A massive attack buff is appreciated by any attack DPS, but Mavuika enjoys Bennett even more due to his ability to buff pyro damage at C6. It's small, but it's there. Overall, this will be an incredible team. I would also like to suggest an alternative, a melt team with Citlali. The benefits of Shallonen and Bennett still apply, nothing has changed there. However, Citlali allowing for a melt team is something we've never really seen. Her being able to reduce pyro resistance of enemies as well as her burst being really strong damage-wise is quite nice. Melt is also a more powerful reaction than Vaporize, allowing for Mavuika to deal more personal damage. What I will say though is that it's currently unclear whether or not Citlali's cryo application is enough to allow Mavuika to melt every multiple hit. If that is possible, however, this will end up being an absurdly strong team. Now that I've discussed DPS Mavuika, it's time we look at some teams where Mavuika will work as a sub DPS. And much like I did with Shallonen, I'm going to order this in priority of the bigger buffs to the weaker buffs. And at the end, I'm going to discuss some popular characters that were left behind by Mavuika. First of all, I think the biggest winner here is going to have to be Kinich. While there are characters that have gained bigger DPS increases, Kinich is the one I want to focus on because he didn't have to give up his identity in order to gain that increase. But I'll get into that later. Kinich finally gets something he's been desperately asking for ever since his release, a second good pyro character. While I no longer believe Bennett with Kinich is bricked, on the complete flip side, I think that Xiangling with Kinich is the bad combo. Funny how things change. Xiangling's problems in a Kinich team come from the fact that Kinich tries his absolute hardest to create distance between himself and the enemy. A distance just large enough to allow Xiangling to miss her Pyronado incredibly consistently. This combined with Xiangling's infamous Guoba inconsistency and her ridiculous ER needs makes her really sad in a Kinich team. Mavuika, however, not only does she deal more damage than Xiangling in this role, she also gives Kinich a damage percent buff, something that Xiangling never could. This means that both your off-field Pyro and your Kinich are dealing more damage, leading to a way better team overall. Next up, we're going to get into a very similar situation with Mualani. Much like Kinich, she was forced into using Xiangling before. Quite a sad sound, eh? Well, Mualani does not have the distance issue that Kinich had. This means it's quite easy for Xiangling to hit enemies. So what's the issue here? Well, thanks to a lack of Bennett, Xiangling's ER requirements are even worse. There is a very good chance that your account just does not have the pieces to burst consistently in a Mualani team. Mavuika, however, yeah, no ER needs here. I will say one thing, Xiangling has more pyro application. Does this matter? Well, sort of. If you want to run Mualani with Farina, Mavuika makes that less consistent. Is this a big issue? In my opinion, no. Mualani with Farina wasn't that consistent in the first place, so you probably would have been better off with something else anyway. Now it's time for... Is it biased if I say Mavuika is an insane increase towards Navia teams? I'm not insane for saying that, right? The synergy between Navia and Mavuika comes down to two factors. Navia's flexible rotation as a DPS, and also their shared supports. First off, Navia's rotation. Her normal attacks are less than stellar when you compare them to the likes of Arlecchino. But that doesn't matter. Navia's E is what you care about, and she has no obligation to stay on field after the E. So if you had someone who could deal bigger damage with her normal attacks like, I don't know, Mavuika, Navia essentially becomes more like a sub-DPS nuker, with Mavuika taking center stage. It also helps that they want the same supports. Mavuika and Navia are both incredible fans of Xilonen. Navia because she lacks any great alternatives, and Mavuika because she really wants a second Night Soul character. Xilonen also has incredible buffing in general, which I've gone over in this video already. I already discussed why Bennett is good with Mavuika, and Navia is also an attack scaler. This makes it so they both want to use Bennett. If we take a look at Farina, while it's less good for Navia, it allows Mavuika to access Vaporise. It'll be a great option for multi-wave content. Mavuika with Navia also enables Pyro Resonance if you use Bennett, and Mavuika still has a buff to give through her A4, so it's a very cohesive team. I also want to take a second to address the Overload niche, specifically with Electro carries. Cloran and Raiden both have decent Overload teams that will be getting buffed by Mavuika. There's not some kind of insane synergy here or anything, it's just that she does more damage than Xiangling and has a buff. However, I would like to say that something you can consider is running Auroron over Sara and Fischl. In the regular Overload team, you don't have a Night Soul character, which greatly diminishes Mavuika's performance. However, with Auroron, you do have a Night Soul unit, allowing Mavuika to access more of her buff. I still think Sara or Fischl are better in this alternative. Another thing to mention with Raiden is that Mavuika doesn't use energy, so she's unable to generate Resolve for Raiden. Now it's time we move on to some teams that will not be benefited by Mavuika. First, I wanted to talk about Arlecchino. Arlecchino is currently one of the most popular characters in the game, and oh boy is she getting shafted here. Normally when an Archon is released, the worst that can happen is that you don't benefit from the Archon. Arlecchino, however, not only does she not benefit from Mavuika, Mavuika actively power creeps her in the Pyro DPS role. Wow, talk about a fall off. She is going from a top 3 DPS to not even being a top 5 in a single patch. Next up, there's Chasca. But wait! Chasca's a not lane character who gives Mavuika more fighting spirit. How is Chasca bad with Mavuika? Well, that's the thing. It's not that Chasca is bad for Mavuika, it's that Chasca physically cannot fit Mavuika into her team. Chasca gains an absurd amount of damage from having 3 different elemental characters as her supports. But considering the fact that she is currently using Bennett, yeah. If you try to swap Bennett for Mavuika, you'll lose the healing you need for Farina. Maybe try swapping Auroron for a Cryo or Electro healer? Yeah, no. At best, it will be about as good as the current team. This is a concern that I had for Chasca back when she was in beta herself, and unfortunately, it was not addressed. Finally, I would like to talk about the national team core, and how Mavuika compares to Xiangling. First off, why? If you're playing a Bennett Hydro team, then you want to add Mavuika or Xiangling, just play a regular DPS Mavuika. I don't really get why you'd want to play Mavuika in this way, especially since the single advantage that National has right now is being dominated by 4 stars. Regardless, Xiangling combined with a Bennett can outdamage Mavuika due to her ability Snapshot, so Xiangling does win here. So yeah, that's my thoughts on some of Mavuika's best teams. If you learned something from this, be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. If you still have questions, be sure to ask them in the comments. But a better way to reach me would be through my Discord or my Twitter, both of which are linked in description. That'll be all from me. Peace.